The restaurant buzzed with quiet conversations and the clinking of silverware, but one table stood out. A woman, impeccably dressed, sat with a young daughter, whose wide, innocent eyes took in the world around her. The little girl, confined to a wheelchair, smiled brightly at the sight of her meal, but there was a problem: she couldn't eat on her own. Her mother, a billionaire known for her cold, businesslike demeanor, checked her phone, barely glancing up. She had hired the best caregivers money could buy, but tonight no one was there to help. Just as an awkward silence settled, a young waiter noticed the struggle. Without hesitation, he stepped forward, gently kneeling beside the girl. With a kind smile, he carefully lifted the spoon, offering her a bite. The mother froze, watching this stranger, this ordinary man, do something so simple yet so powerful. For the first time in years, someone wasn't treating her daughter as an inconvenience or a responsibility. He saw her as a person. The billionaire's grip on her phone tightened. No one had ever done this before. Who was this waiter? Why did he care? And why, in that moment, did something inside her shift? She had no idea that this small act of kindness was about to change both of their lives forever. The billionaire mother, Evelyn Carter, watched in silence as the young waiter, his name tag reading Daniel, patiently fed her daughter Lily. Each movement was gentle, each gesture full of care. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't uncomfortable. He was simply present, treating her daughter with a kindness Evelyn rarely saw from anyone outside of paid professionals. For years, Evelyn had built walls around her heart, focusing on growing her empire. Business was simple: profits, losses, deals. People, on the other hand, were complicated. Trusting them? Even harder. She had hired countless employees, assistants and caregivers, but none had ever treated Lily like this. Daniel, completely unaware of Evelyn's gaze, smiled as Lily giggled after taking a bite. "That's a good one, huh?" he said, laughing softly. He wasn't doing this for a tip. He wasn't doing it because someone told him to. It was genuine. Evelyn's grip on her fork tightened. Who was this man? And why did something about him feel different? She glanced at his uniform, worn but clean. His shoes were scuffed. His hands, though gentle, showed signs of hard work. He didn't have much, that was clear. A billionaire and a struggling waiter. Two lives that couldn't be more different. And yet, in this moment, something connected them. Evelyn just didn't know why, at least not yet. Evelyn found herself watching Daniel more closely than she intended. There was something about him, something rare. In her world, kindness often came with a price tag, but he had no idea who she was. To him, she was just another customer, and Lily was just another child. And yet, he cared. As Daniel continued helping Lily, another waiter hurried over. "Daniel," he whispered harshly, "table 6 needs refills. You don't have time for this." Daniel nodded quickly, his moment with Lily cut short. He gave her one last smile before rising to his feet. "I'll be right back," he promised before rushing off. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. She had seen that look before, the exhaustion, the quiet desperation. She didn't need to ask, she already knew. He was struggling, maybe working 2 jobs, maybe supporting family, maybe drowning in bills. It didn't matter. She had built an empire reading people, and she could see it all over him. Her mind turned, calculating. People like Daniel didn't get opportunities. They were overlooked, underpaid, forgotten. She had stepped on 100 Daniels to get where she was. But this one made her pause. As she stirred her untouched drink, a thought settled in her mind. She could change his life. With one phone call, one signature, she could pull him out of whatever hardship he faced. But why did she feel like she shouldn't? Evelyn couldn't stop thinking about Daniel. Even as she sipped her drink, even as Lily happily finished her meal, her mind kept circling back. People like him never asked for anything. They just kept going, pushing through whatever life threw at them. And that bothered her more than she wanted to admit. A few minutes later, Daniel returned, slightly out of breath but still smiling. "Sorry about that," he said softly to Lily before turning to Evelyn. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" Evelyn studied him. He wasn't just polite. There was something in his eyes. Determination. Maybe even exhaustion hiding behind his easy smile. She finally spoke. "How long have you worked here?" Daniel blinked, clearly surprised by the question. Almost 2 years." "And before that," she pressed. He hesitated, glancing toward his manager, who was watching from across the restaurant. "A few other places," he admitted, lowering his voice. "Construction, deliveries, whatever pays the bills." Evelyn leaned back, her sharp instincts kicking in. This wasn't just a job for him. It was survival. She could change that in an instant. But before she could say anything, a voice interrupted. "Daniel." His manager's voice rang out. "You're needed in the back. Now." Daniel's jaw tightened. He nodded and turned back to Evelyn. "Enjoy your meal," he said before quickly walking away. Evelyn tapped her nails against the table, watching as he disappeared into the kitchen. Something about the way the manager had spoken didn't sit right with her. She had built her empire by recognizing power imbalances, and she had just seen one in action. Lily reached for her mother's hand, bringing her back to the moment. Evelyn exhaled slowly, glancing at her daughter's bright smile. Then she made a decision. She wasn't leaving. Not yet. Evelyn watched as Daniel disappeared through the kitchen doors, tension still thick in the air. Something wasn't right. The way his manager barked at him, the way Daniel lowered his head. It reminded her of the corporate world she ruled. Power. Control. She had seen it 100 times before. But this time, she wasn't the one holding the leverage. Lily, unaware of her mother's thoughts, tapped her fingers against the table, humming softly. Evelyn glanced at her daughter, then back toward the kitchen. She had spent years building walls to protect herself, to keep emotions from clouding her judgment. But this wasn't business. This was something else. Minutes passed, and Daniel didn't return. The restaurant carried on as usual, but Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that something was happening behind those kitchen doors. Finally, she stood. "Stay here, sweetheart," she murmured to Lily, signaling for a nearby hostess to keep an eye on her daughter. As she approached the kitchen entrance, a muffled voice stopped her in her tracks. "I don't care how hard you work, Daniel. If you can't keep up, you're done." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Carefully, she stepped closer, just in time to hear Daniel's response. "Please just give me until the end of the week. I need this job." There was desperation in his voice, the kind she had heard from struggling entrepreneurs begging for funding, from employees afraid of losing everything. A cruel laugh followed. "You should be grateful I even let you stay this long." Evelyn's pulse quickened. She had come here for a quiet dinner. Instead, she had walked into something much bigger. And for the first time in years, she wasn't sure if she was going to sit back and watch. Evelyn had spent years making decisions that shaped billion-dollar deals, but in that moment, standing outside the kitchen, she didn't think, she acted. Pushing the door open, she stepped inside. The room fell silent. Daniel and his manager both turned, their expressions shifting from frustration to shock. "Is there a problem?" Evelyn's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, the same tone she used in boardrooms when she was about to dismantle someone's power. The manager hesitated, then straightened. "This is a staff matter, ma'am. Customers aren't allowed back here." Evelyn ignored him, turning to Daniel. "Are you being fired?" Daniel swallowed hard. He looked embarrassed, like he didn't want her, or anyone, to see him like this. "It's fine," he muttered. "I'll figure it out." But Evelyn saw past that. He wasn't just losing a job. He was losing stability, maybe rent, maybe food, maybe more. She turned back to the manager. "Do you have any idea who I am?" The man faltered. I own businesses that make more in an hour than this restaurant does in a year," she cut in. "And I can make one phone call to ensure this place is either thriving or closed by the end of the week." She took a step closer, lowering her voice. So tell me, what's Daniel's crime? Kindness. The manager paled. He'd opened his mouth but had no answer. Evelyn turned to Daniel. You don't belong here. Daniel blinked. What? She pulled out a card from her purse. I don't believe in handouts, but I do believe in potential. She handed it to him. Come to my office tomorrow. I have a job for you. The room was silent. Daniel stared at the card, then at her. Why are you doing this? Evelyn glanced toward the dining area, where Lily was watching with wide eyes. Because my daughter saw something in you, she said softly. And for once, I think she's right. Daniel exhaled, his entire body still tense, as if waiting for this to be a cruel joke. But it wasn't. It was real. The manager stepped back, suddenly small in the presence of someone who saw straight through him. Evelyn turned, walking out of the kitchen without another word. As she reached her table, she found Lily grinning up at her. You fixed it, Lily whispered. Evelyn smiled for the first time that night. No, sweetheart, she said, taking her daughter's hand. He fixed it himself. I just made sure the right person finally noticed. The next morning, Daniel stood outside a towering glass building, Evelyn's business headquarters. The card she had given him felt heavy in his pocket, as if it carried the weight of a future he never imagined for himself. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. Evelyn was waiting. This time, she wasn't just a customer in a restaurant. She was the powerful woman he had unknowingly impressed with a simple act of kindness. You showed me something yesterday, she said as he sat across from her in a sleek office. Something money can't buy. Daniel still didn't fully understand why she had chosen him, but he knew one thing: he wasn't going to waste this opportunity. Weeks passed, and he quickly proved himself. Hardworking, sharp, eager to learn. The same qualities that once kept him struggling were now the very things pushing him forward. One evening, as he finished work, he spotted Evelyn and Lily leaving the office. The little girl waved excitedly. Hi, Daniel. Evelyn met his gaze, a rare warmth in her eyes. You were right, she admitted. Kindness does matter. Daniel smiled, knowing that in the end, a simple moment in a restaurant had changed everything for both of them.